On my 66th birthday, my grandson Jeffrey hit me right there in the backyard, and not one person said a word. Not my daughter Rachel, not her husband, not even the younger grandkids. They just kept eating like nothing happened. I stood there with a paper plate of carrot cake I couldn't even eat, and a $5 lottery ticket I'd bought on a whim that morning, wondering when I stopped being someone they cared about. That night, I left without saying goodbye. By morning, that little scratch-off had made me $4.5 million richer, and no one knew. I didn't call. I didn't turn back. I found someone else they'd thrown away. Angela, Jeffrey's ex, a single mom, with nothing but flour on her hands and a dream in her heart. She thanked me like it meant something. And now, Jeffrey's furious. Rachel says she regrets staying silent. But me? I've never felt more sure, more free. Before we begin, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this story. And tell me in the comments below, what's one moment in your life that changed everything? I want to hear from you. I turned 66 that morning, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect much. Not a big party, not a grand gesture, just something simple, a little love, maybe a smile, a hug, something that felt like family. Instead, I got a patio full of lukewarm potato salad and a cake I couldn't even eat. I pulled up to my daughter's house in Raleigh around 2. My hands were full, some deviled eggs I made that morning, and a tiny envelope with a $5 scratch-off ticket I bought at the gas station on the way. Just a silly little birthday thing I always did. Never won a dime, but it gave me a reason to hope. The backyard was already crowded when I walked in. Rachel, my daughter, was taping up a cheap plastic banner. I noticed my name was spelled wrong. Happy birthday, Jeanette. My name's not Jeanette, never has been, just Jean. I didn't say anything. The cake was on the table, store-bought carrot cake. I'm allergic to walnuts, and Rachel knew that. I saw her glance at it, then at me, then turn away. I set down my eggs. No one noticed. Not one person said, "Hey, Mom," or "Happy birthday, Grandma." Just a few distracted heys, and a half-hearted wave from Mark, my son-in-law, already halfway through a beer. Jeffrey was slouched in one of the patio chairs, legs spread out, vape pen in hand, like he was king of the backyard. 20 years old, and acting like he ran the place. I said, "Hi, baby," and he barely looked at me, just gave a little grunt and puffed out some smoke. His phone never left his hand. I tried to smile. Told myself not to expect much. It's just a small thing, I thought. Be grateful. You're here. They're here. But it stung. The older I get, the more I realize how small moments like that stack up. I sat down on a plastic chair, picked at a piece of lettuce from a soggy salad bowl, and listened to them argue about a new video game. Jeffrey and his younger brother were going back and forth, voices getting louder by the second. Mark laughed like it was all entertainment. Rachel kept texting, not even looking up. I finally said, "Let's keep the peace today, please. Just for one afternoon." That's all I said. Calm voice. Just a tired grandmother trying to keep her day from falling apart. Jeffrey stood up so fast, the chair squeaked against the concrete. He turned, eyes wild, and snapped, "You always think you're in charge. You ain't." Then he slapped me. Right across the face. Open hand. Sharp. Real. It took a second to register. My ears rang a little. I still had a plastic fork in my hand. It dropped to the ground. My whole body felt frozen, like time stopped. I looked at Rachel. Her mouth was slightly open, but no sound came out. Mark didn't even flinch. He cracked open another beer. The younger grandkids looked down at their plates like they weren't even there. Not one person moved. Not one person said a word. I stood there with that stupid paper plate in my hand, a piece of cake sliding off the side. I remember staring at the frosting. It was that fake orange color you only see at discount grocery stores. No one asked if I was okay. No one told him to stop. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't do anything you might expect a woman to do when she's hit in front of her own family. I just quietly placed the plate back on the table, wiped my fingers on a napkin, and reached into my purse. I pulled out the scratch-off ticket I'd bought that morning, slipped it inside my bag. No one noticed. "I'm going to lie down," I said. My voice was calm, like I'd just announced I needed some fresh air, and I walked into the house. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. I made it to the guest room, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. I touched my cheek. It burned, but not in the way you might think. It wasn't the sting of skin. It was the kind of burn that goes all the way inside, deep, where memories live. Like every small moment where I was overlooked just showed up at once to remind me, "You don't matter here." I waited for a knock on the door, for Rachel to come in, for someone to say, "Mom, I'm so sorry," or "Grandma, are you okay?" But the house was quiet. I could hear the muffled sound of laughter outside. Someone turned up the music. I sat there holding my purse, my $5 ticket inside, and wondered when I stopped being someone they respected, or loved, or even saw. An hour passed. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked out the front door without looking back. 2 blocks down, I reached my car. I didn't know where I was going yet. I just knew I wasn't going to spend another night pretending I belonged at a table where nobody noticed when I got slapped on my own birthday. And that little lottery ticket, it was the only thing that felt like it was really mine. I didn't sleep in that guest room. I just sat there, fully dressed, with my purse still on my lap. The room smelled like lavender air freshener, but underneath that, I could still smell the carrot cake. I hated that smell. It made my stomach twist. No one knocked. No one came to check on me, not even Rachel. I heard voices outside, laughing again. Music played. Someone cracked open another drink. It was like nothing had happened, like I hadn't been slapped in front of everyone, like I didn't matter at all. Around 10, I stood up, looked around the room one last time, and quietly opened the door. The hallway was dark and empty. I moved slow, careful not to make a sound, like I was sneaking out of someone else's house. Maybe I was. I walked out the front door and into the night. It was cool outside, that soft kind of chill that reminds you summer's almost over. I could hear a few crickets and the low hum of the neighbor's air conditioner. My car was still parked 2 blocks down. I didn't want to risk anyone seeing me leave. Funny how we still try to protect the people who hurt us. I started the car, hands steady, eyes forward. I didn't have a plan. Just a full tank of gas, and a heart too heavy to carry home. I drove east, toward the coast, with no radio on, just the road and the sound of my own thoughts. I passed through quiet towns with empty sidewalks and shuttered gas stations. Lights flickered in old street lamps. It felt like the whole world had gone to sleep without me. About 2 hours later, I saw a little sign that said, "Suncrest Inn, vacancy." The place looked worn down. One of those old roadside motels, with chipped paint and a neon sign that buzzed louder than the cicadas. But it was open, and that's all I needed. I paid cash, no questions asked. The woman at the front desk barely looked up. Room 7. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was small, just a bed, a dresser, and a tiny TV that didn't work right. The carpet was stained. The bathroom mirror had a crack across the corner, but it was quiet, and it was mine for the night. I dropped my purse on the bed, kicked off my shoes, and sat down slowly. My body ached, not from walking or driving, but from carrying the weight of being ignored for so long. I looked down at my purse, still halfway open. The lottery ticket peeked out. That silly little ticket. I pulled it out and stared at it for a while. I'd almost forgotten I even bought it. Just a thing I did every birthday. A habit. A small silly tradition for a woman who didn't ask for much. I reached for the quarter on my keychain and started scratching. First number, second, third. My hand started shaking. Fourth, fifth, sixth. I blinked. Then I blinked again. It couldn't be right. $4.5 million. $4.5 million. I just sat there, holding that ticket like it might vanish if I moved too fast. I read it over and over, double-checked the numbers. I flipped it over and read the fine print. I even looked up the lottery website on my phone to be sure. It was real. I didn't scream. I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. I cried, not because I was rich now. That wasn't what got me. It was because, in that moment, I realized what I already knew deep down, that nobody in that backyard would have cared if I had quietly disappeared, that I could win millions and vanish from their lives, and they probably wouldn't even notice until they needed something. The money didn't make me feel lucky. It made me feel seen, for the first time in a long time, but only by chance. Not by the people I'd raised, fed, helped, prayed for. I laid back on the bed, the ticket still in my hand, and stared at the ceiling. What do you do when you find out you don't matter to your own family? What do you do when life finally throws you a rope? But the people you love are the ones who made you feel like you were drowning in the first place. I didn't sleep much that night. The motel bed was stiff, and the air conditioner rattled like it had one screw loose. But I didn't care. I felt quiet, not peaceful, exactly, just still. I thought about calling Rachel, or maybe leaving a note at least. But then I thought, why? What would I even say? Hey honey, your son hit me today, and nobody did a thing about it. But don't worry, I hit the jackpot. No, I wasn't going to give them that. Not the money, not the story, not even a goodbye. For the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone an explanation. By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going back. Not tomorrow, not ever. And I wasn't telling a soul about that ticket. It was mine. Not because I was lucky. Because I'd finally had enough. I woke up the next morning to the sound of trucks on the highway and birds fighting over crumbs outside my motel window. I sat up slowly, my back stiff, and stared at the lottery ticket still lying on the nightstand, like it was waiting to be a dream again. But it wasn't. It was real. And so was everything that led me here. I got dressed, ran a comb through my hair, and drove to a little diner down the street. Ate some dry toast, drank 2 cups of strong coffee, and made a plan on a napkin. I didn't have anyone to ask for advice, no one I trusted. But I figured I could trust myself. I found a lawyer's office nearby with good reviews, called from a payphone outside a hardware store. I gave them a fake name and said I wanted to claim a winning ticket, but I didn't want my name on the news. No cameras, no press. They told me it was possible through a trust, and I could stay anonymous if I followed the right steps. I said, good, let's do that. 2 days later, I walked into their office with my ticket sealed in a Ziploc bag. My hands shook as I handed it over, not because I was scared of losing the money, because I was finally doing something just for me. They helped me set up what's called a blind trust. I picked a name that made me smile, Still Here Trust, because that's exactly what I was. Still here, still standing. Once everything was in motion, I went to a small phone store and bought the cheapest flip phone they had. Then, I got a basic laptop from a pawn shop. Nothing fancy, just enough to look up rentals and pay bills without going into any town where someone might recognize me. I used my mother's maiden name, Jean Coulter, and found a small 1-bedroom apartment in Wilmington, North Carolina. It was upstairs from a closed-down flower shop just outside downtown. The rent was cheap. The windows stuck a little, and the fridge made a weird humming noise. But it was mine. No one knew where I was, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. That first week in Wilmington was quiet. I didn't go out much, except to buy groceries and cleaning supplies. I scrubbed every corner of that apartment, even though it was already clean. I guess I needed to feel like I was clearing out more than just dust. I bought a notebook from the dollar store and started writing. At first, I didn't know what to say. My hands felt awkward holding the pen. But once I got going, the words poured out like water breaking through a dam. I wrote about the party, the slap, the silence. I wrote about the times I'd stayed quiet when I shouldn't have. All the birthdays I cooked for, the phone calls I waited for, the times I paid for groceries I couldn't afford just to keep peace. I wrote about Jeffrey, the boy I used to rock to sleep, the one who used to call me Lala and ask me to make grilled cheese cut into little triangles. And now, he couldn't even look me in the eye without anger. I wrote about Rachel, my daughter, who used to braid my hair when I had headaches, the one who cried on my shoulder after her first miscarriage, the one who froze while I was being humiliated, and I wrote about me, the woman I used to be, the one who loved music and baking and long walks, the one who used to dream about traveling, starting a small cafe someday. I didn't even know when I stopped dreaming. Somewhere between doctor's appointments and unpaid bills, I guess, I realized something as I filled those pages. Somewhere along the way, I had disappeared. Not all at once, a little bit at a time. Every time I put someone else first, every time I swallowed my voice, every time I made myself smaller just to keep things running. By the end of the week, I'd filled half the notebook. I didn't feel healed, not by a long shot, but I felt visible, at least to myself. Most nights, I made tea, sat by the little window, and wrote until my fingers cramped. I didn't miss anyone, not yet. Maybe I would later, but right then, I was still too raw to reach backward. I knew they hadn't called. No texts, no voicemails, no missed calls. Not that they knew where I was, but still, it hurt that nobody was even trying. The truth is, they probably assumed I went back to my apartment, cried a little, then forgave them by morning like I always did. But not this time. This time, I had a key to a new door, and money in the bank, and a name they didn't know. I wasn't lost. I was just somewhere new, and for once, that felt like enough. I never thought I'd spend so much time on Facebook at my age, but once I settled into the apartment in Wilmington, scrolling became a habit. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just recipes, dog videos, the occasional photo of someone's grandchild wearing Halloween costumes. It helped me pass the time when the evenings got quiet. One night, maybe 3 weeks after I left, I was lying on the couch with my tea, mindlessly tapping through posts. I ended up on a public page for a community pie recipe exchange. Don't ask me how I got there, but something caught my eye. There was a picture of a young woman standing in a tiny, cluttered kitchen. She wore a flour-dusted apron, hair tied up in a messy bun. She held up a pie, smiling like she was proud and exhausted all at once. The caption read, "Still dreaming of my little southern pie shop. One day. Just need a little more hope. A little more time." I stared at the photo for a long time. Her name popped up at the top, Angela Brooks, and suddenly, my heart twisted. Angela, Jeffrey's ex-girlfriend. It had been years since I saw her. Last I heard, they'd broken up not long after high school, and she'd just disappeared. Nobody talked about her, not Rachel, not Jeffrey. One day she was part of Sunday dinners, bringing potato salad and folding napkins with me in the kitchen. The next, it was like she never existed. But I remembered her. I remembered how she'd bring me a cup of chamomile tea when my head hurt, and how she always said thank you like she meant it. She never looked at her phone while I talked. She listened. That's rare, you know? I clicked on her profile. It was public, at least partly. I saw photos of her with a little girl, toddler, maybe 2. Same curly hair, same bright eyes. The caption said her name was Lena. Angela's posts were quiet, real. No filters, no nonsense. Just snapshots of daily life. Burnt pies, handwritten recipe notes, flour on her sleeves. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing something honest, and I felt something shift inside me. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt something warmer, like maybe I wasn't the only one who'd been tossed aside. I stared at that post about her dream bakery for at least 15 minutes. I didn't comment, didn't like it. I just sat there, thinking. She deserved more, I knew it, and maybe, just maybe, I could do something about that. I opened the Messages tab and started typing. "Do you still want to bake?" That's all I wrote. Then I erased it. Typed it again. Erased it again. Finally, I hit send from a burner account I'd made when I first moved. No picture, no name, just the question. I didn't sleep well that night. I kept checking my phone, like some nervous teenager. She didn't reply. Not that night, not the next morning either. By afternoon, I'd convinced myself I shouldn't have messaged her at all. But then, the little bubble popped up. She replied, "Who is this?" My hands shook. I stared at the screen. It was a fair question. Who messages someone out of the blue, asking about pies? I took a deep breath and typed, "It's Jean. Jeffrey's grandmother. I'm safe. I have something I want to talk to you about, if you're still in Wilmington." I hit send before I could talk myself out of it. She didn't reply right away. I understood. I'd probably think I was crazy too, if someone I hadn't seen in years showed up in my inbox like a ghost from a life you tried to forget. But the next day I got her response. "You're serious?" I replied. "I am." She gave me the name of a little cafe near her apartment, said to meet her Thursday at 3. That Thursday, I got there early, real early, like 2:20. I ordered a tea, sat at a booth by the window, and tried to keep my hands from shaking. I must have spilled a third of that cup, just trying to stir in sugar. When Angela walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was pulled back. She looked tired but strong. She was holding her little girl, Lena, who was asleep on her shoulder. She hesitated near the door, unsure if she should sit. I said softly, "It's really me." Her shoulders dropped, just a little, like she'd been carrying a backpack of bricks, and finally set it down. She came over, slid into the booth across from me, and laid Lena gently beside her. She looked at me, eyes searching, and asked, "What happened?" So I told her, not just about the slap, about the silence, about the motel, about the ticket, all of it. She didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Why me?" And I told her the truth. Because she'd always seen me. Because even when Jeffrey rolled his eyes, or Rachel brushed me off, Angela always noticed. She showed up. She was kind. And she still had dreams. I said, "I want to help you build that pie shop. You've got the heart for it. I've got the funds." Her lip trembled. She looked away like she didn't want to believe it could be real. Then she whispered, "What's the catch?" And I smiled. "There isn't one," I said. "I just want to do something good with someone good." She didn't cry right then, but I did, quietly, behind my teacup, while her daughter snored softly between us. Angela and I met again 3 days later, at a little diner tucked between a laundromat and a corner gas station. It wasn't much: vinyl booths, a menu stuck to the table with tape, and a waitress who called everyone sugar, whether she meant it or not. But it was quiet, and that was all we needed. She came in with little Lena on her hip, wearing a sweater too thin for the weather, and hair tied up with a rubber band. Her eyes scanned the room until she saw me. Then she gave a small wave and made her way over. I stood up, reached for her bag, and helped her slide into the booth. "You didn't have to do all that," she said, a little breathless. "Old habits," I smiled. "Besides, I'm not used to being waited on." She gave me a small, tired smile and sat Lena down beside her with a cup of apple slices the waitress brought over without asking. The kid didn't say much, just chewed and looked around like she was taking notes. We ordered coffee and a shared slice of pecan pie. It wasn't great, but it gave our hands something to do while we talked. "I still can't believe you messaged me," Angela said after a while. "I thought maybe it was a prank." "Not a prank," I said. "I was just sitting in my little apartment, thinking about my life, and yours, and wondering if maybe we both deserved a fresh start." Angela stirred her coffee. "I haven't had a fresh start in years, mostly just restarts, and none of them stuck." I leaned in, both hands wrapped around my mug. "What if I told you this one could?" She looked at me, eyes narrowing just slightly. "I don't know what that means." So I told her about the trust, the money, the bakery idea. "I saw that post you made," I said. "The one about your dream pie shop, that kitchen you stood in. It reminded me of the one I had when Rachel was little. I used to bake when I was stressed. Cookies, biscuits, banana bread. Never had the nerve to sell it, though." Angela gave a soft laugh. "I bake when I can't sleep. Last night, I made 3 blueberry pies and burned 2. "You're halfway to greatness," I said, and we both chuckled. Then I got serious. "I want to help you build it," I said. "For real, not a pop-up, not a hobby. A real place, a storefront, a bakery." Angela blinked. "You mean like An actual bakery. Yes, I said. And you'd run it. I'll handle the money and the paperwork. You bake. We keep it simple. We build it honest. She shook her head like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Jean, I don't even have a checking account right now. I'm working 2 part-time jobs just to pay rent. I can't even afford a real mixer. I nodded. That's why I'm here. But why me? She asked again. There's a million other things you could do with that money. Because you saw me, I said, when nobody else did. You remembered my migraines. You brought tea when Jeffrey didn't care to. You treated me like I mattered. And I see you now. That little girl of yours deserves a mom who gets to chase her dream, not just survive. And maybe I get to chase mine too, on the way. Angela looked away, blinking fast. I don't know what to say. Say yes, I told her. This isn't charity, it's a reset, for both of us. She didn't speak for a while, just stared at Lena, who had fallen asleep, curled up with her head on Angela's thigh. Then she said softly, Okay, yes, let's try. I reached across the table and gave her hand a squeeze. We'll keep it small to start, I said. 1 oven, a few tables, no fancy signs, just good food and real people. She smiled, still unsure. What would we call it? I paused. Well, what name do you think fits? Angela looked down at her daughter. Something about rising, not just dough, you know? Something that feels like survival with sugar on top. I laughed. That's a bakery slogan, if I've ever heard one. She tilted her head, thinking. What about Golden Crust? Sounds warm, strong, like it's been through the fire and still turned out good. I nodded slowly. Golden Crust. I like that. We clinked our coffee mugs together. Not loud, not dramatic. Just 2 women making a promise. We spent the rest of the afternoon sketching out ideas on napkins. Angela doodled pie names like Sweet Revival and Second Chance Cherry. I made a list of equipment we'd need. She talked about having a little reading corner for customers with kids, and I said we'd stock it with old cookbooks too. By the time we left the diner, the sun was dipping low. Angela pulled her jacket tighter around Lena and hugged me with one arm. Thank you, Jean, she whispered. You really didn't have to. I smiled, brushing a crumb off her shoulder. No, sweetheart, but I wanted to. As I drove home, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge, or running away, or even proving a point. It was about building something better from the pieces I still had left. Not perfect, not polished, but something real. A week later, Angela and I stood in front of a dusty old shop with a sagging awning and a crooked mailbox that hadn't seen mail in months. The windows were covered in old brown paper, and a faded "For Lease" sign hung inside the door. It was perfect. Now I know how that sounds. Perfect. It had a crack in one of the front windows. The floor creaked, and there was a weird smell in the back room we never really figured out. But it was in a quiet little Wilmington neighborhood, just a few blocks from a school and across the street from a small park. Families walked dogs there. Retirees read books on benches. Kids rode scooters after school. We could work with that. We called the number on the sign, and the landlord met us 2 days later. He was in his 70s, wore suspenders, and smelled like cigars and paint thinner. He barely asked any questions, just said, "You ladies want to fix it up? Be my guests. Rent's due the 1st. We paid cash up front for 6 months. We brought folding chairs and sat in the middle of that empty room for hours, just talking and planning. Angela started sketching where the ovens would go. I made a list of what needed to be done: paint, tile, plumbing, permits, equipment. It felt like we were building a house, but instead of bedrooms, we were building dreams. I'd never opened a business before. I'd worked, sure, grocery stores, the church office, a little catering on the side. But this was new. I spent hours on that old laptop, watching videos and reading everything I could about health codes and business licenses. I filed the LLC for Golden Crust myself. The woman at the licensing office even smiled and said, "Good name." That made me feel taller somehow. We found a local contractor through the church bulletin board. His name was Darnell. He was semi-retired, but said he'd take it on because his mama used to bake pies, and he liked the smell of flour. He brought his nephew along, and they worked slow but steady. Angela dug out her grandmother's old recipe binder from a cardboard box under her bed. It was stained and handwritten, with notes in the margins like "add cinnamon if guests coming over" and "don't forget love." We went through every single page. That binder became our holy book. Some nights, I'd stay late, sweeping sawdust and folding boxes, while Angela tested pies in her tiny kitchen and brought me slices in mismatched Tupperware. There was one, peach praline, that nearly made me cry. It tasted like something you remember from childhood, but forgot until just then. Lena became our shadow, waddling around with a tiny plastic rolling pin and yelling, "Hot," every time someone opened the oven. We laughed more than we cried. Not every day was easy. The water heater broke twice. We ordered the wrong size shelves. Angela burned a whole batch of crusts and nearly gave up. But somehow it didn't feel heavy. It felt real. I started to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Useful. Not just needed. Valued. I wasn't someone's mother or grandmother or emergency babysitter. I wasn't the woman who brought the deviled eggs and stayed quiet when things got awkward. I was a partner, a builder, and in Angela's eyes, I wasn't old or invisible. I was strong, smart, still full of life. The day we hung our homemade "coming soon" sign in the window, a woman walking her dog stopped and said, "We've been waiting for something like this." Angela beamed. I teared up a little. We were really doing it. Our soft launch wasn't anything fancy. We cleaned the front windows, set up 2 small tables by the wall, and posted a single photo on a new Facebook page. Golden crust, Southern pies made from scratch and heart. Open this Saturday. No frills, just flavor. We had no idea if anyone would show. That morning, we wore matching aprons with our names stitched in by Angela's neighbor. The air smelled like cinnamon and butter. I burned my finger on a pie tin and didn't even care. A couple came in first, teachers from the school nearby. Then a young mother with 2 kids. Then a nurse who said she saw our sign on her walk. Nobody stayed long, but they bought things, and they smiled. One woman said, "This tastes like my grandmother's kitchen." And just like that, it was all worth it. We sold out of 3 pies and had only 2 slices of chocolate pecan left by noon. Angela cried in the back room after the last customer left. She thought it wasn't enough. I hugged her tight and said, "You don't need a line out the door to prove this is working. You just need one happy customer at a time." That night, we sat on overturned milk crates in the kitchen, eating leftover crust scraps with whipped cream and laughing about the way Lena kept trying to sell pies to the plumber. Angela leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "This feels like the start of something." And I whispered back, "That's because it is." It started with a photo. One random Tuesday morning, Angela and I were setting out fresh pies in the front case, apple brown sugar, cherry vanilla, and something new she called lemon hope, which I thought sounded like a candle, but tasted like heaven. A customer came in, friendly woman with glasses and a camera hanging around her neck. Said she ran a small food blog and asked if she could snap a few pictures. Angela and I exchanged a quick look. I shrugged. "Sure," I said. "Just no pictures of me, please." She nodded, said she'd keep it focused on the pies and Angela's story. She took a few shots, thanked us, bought a peach crumble, and left. We didn't think much of it. But by Thursday afternoon, our Facebook inbox had blown up. Angela called me from the back room. "Jean," she said, holding out her phone like it was burning her hand. "You need to see this." The food blogger had posted about us. Nothing mean, nothing untrue. She even said nice things, called us a hidden gem run by 2 strong women baking from the heart. The picture was warm and golden, showing our chalkboard menu and the front counter. But in the corner, barely in focus, there I was, head down, apron on, tray in hand. Not clear, but enough. Enough for someone to recognize me. The first message came a few hours later, from Jeffrey. He messaged the bakery's public page. I know that's her. Tell my grandma to answer her phone. This is messed up. What is she doing with you? Then another. This is sick. She left us. She's funding some revenge bakery now. Angela looked pale. Want me to block him? I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered over the reply button. But I didn't write back. No, I said. Let him yell. We've got pies to finish. Over the next couple of days, the messages kept coming. Some were from Jeffrey. Others were from numbers I didn't recognize. Then came the comments. At first, it was curious locals. Love this story. Or, can't wait to stop by. But then it turned. Somebody must have shared the blog post to a bigger group. Maybe one of Jeffrey's friends. Maybe Rachel. Either way, folks started guessing, spreading their own versions. Isn't that the grandma who disappeared after that family drama? Didn't her grandson say she hit him and ran off with money? Wow, imagine leaving your family to bake pies. Wild. Angela tried to delete what she could. I told her not to bother. They'll talk, I said. They always do. Let's let the baking speak louder. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting. Every ding of my phone made my stomach flip. And then the voicemails started. Rachel, my daughter. The first one was short. Her voice was shaky. Mom, I think it's you. I saw the photo. I don't know what's happening. Can you please call me? The second came the next day. Jeffrey's upset. We're all confused. Just call us. Please, we miss you. The third one, that one broke something. I didn't know what to say that day. Okay? I froze. But I never wanted you to leave. Just call me Mom, even if you're mad. Please. I sat alone in the back of the bakery after closing and listened to all three again. Then I deleted them. Angela came in and saw me wiping my face with a dish towel. You okay? She asked gently. I nodded. I'm not hiding, I said. I'm just not available for dysfunction. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I thought about how Rachel used to sit in my lap during thunderstorms, how I used to rub her back when she had growing pains. I thought about Jeffrey's little boy giggle, the one he had before his voice changed and his heart hardened. I missed those versions of them, but those versions were long gone. The people I left behind didn't reach out until someone else told them where I was. Not when I vanished, not after the slap, not after the silence. Only after a photo on a food blog reminded them I was still alive. The next morning, I poured myself a cup of coffee and opened the bakery early. The smell of dough rising, sugar melting, butter browning. That's what kept me steady. That's what reminded me I was more than a woman they forgot. Angela came in with Lena, bundled in a coat 2 sizes too big. And I smiled at them both. We still baking? I asked. Every day, she said. And that was that. We stopped checking the comments. We didn't answer messages from people who only wanted to poke the wound. Instead, we made crusts flakier than dreams and pies sweeter than apologies. And for every voice that doubted me, there was a customer who walked in, bought a slice, and smiled like it meant something. Maybe that's what healing looks like. Not a big speech, not a perfect ending, just showing up anyway. It was a Thursday morning, right after we'd opened for the day. I had just finished wiping down the front counter and setting out the chalkboard sign when I looked up and saw her, Rachel. She was standing on the sidewalk, hands shoved in her hoodie pockets, hair pulled back like she was trying not to be noticed. But I'd recognize her anywhere. Same eyes, same way of standing when she felt nervous, like she wasn't sure if she should knock or run. Angela saw her first through the window. She didn't say a word, just nodded toward the door and quietly picked up Lena, slipping into the back to give us space. I stood still for a second. My heart didn't race. It didn't freeze either. It just ached. I opened the door slowly. Rachel looked at me and said, "Hi, Mom." Her voice cracked halfway through. That was enough to let me know she'd probably practiced it a dozen times on the drive over. "Come in," I said. My voice was steady, maybe too steady. I stepped aside, and she walked in like she was afraid to breathe too loudly. We didn't hug. We didn't even touch. I pointed toward a corner booth by the window. Sit? She nodded and followed me. I poured us 2 mugs of chamomile tea, without asking. Like I used to when she was little, and came home from school, upset. She wrapped her hands around the mug, but didn't drink. Just stared down into the steam, like it had the answers she didn't know how to ask. I saw the blog post, she said. Then the comments. Then Jeffrey started losing his mind. I didn't say anything. She kept going. I didn't know what to do that day. When he hit you, I just froze. And then you were gone, and I figured maybe you needed space. But then you didn't come back, and then the lottery stuff came out, and Angela, and it just... She trailed off. I waited. I didn't stop him, she finally said. I should have. I took a long breath, sipped my tea, let the quiet sit between us before I answered. It wasn't the slap, I said softly. It was the silence. Rachel blinked hard. Her jaw tightened, like she was holding back everything at once. Regret, shame, guilt. I didn't know how to handle it, she whispered. You didn't have to know how, I replied. You just had to speak, or move, or look at me. Something, anything. She nodded slowly. I know. For a while we just sat there. The bakery buzzed softly around us. Fridge humming, the smell of apple butter warming in the back. But inside that booth, it was just us. Mother and daughter. 2 women with too many years of words left unsaid between them. I drove by your old place twice, she said. Knocked once. Nobody answered. When I heard your voice on the bakery voicemail, I figured you didn't want to be found. I looked out the window. I didn't want to be rescued. I wasn't trying to rescue you. No? I asked. She sighed. I just wanted to say sorry. I nodded. That's a good start, I said. She looked up at me then, eyes red. Is it too late? I didn't have an easy answer for that. I thought about all the nights I spent alone in that motel. The birthday cake with walnuts, the banner with the wrong name, the sting on my cheek that faded quicker than the hurt in my chest. I thought about Angela, about the bakery, about Lena calling me Miss Jean, and handing me pretend cookies. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to forget, but I didn't hate her, not Rachel. She was still my daughter, still the same girl who used to bring me dandelions in a paper cup and crawl into my bed when her nightmares got too loud. I didn't offer her forgiveness that day, not because I didn't want to, because I wasn't ready yet, but I listened, and sometimes that's the beginning. She looked down at her tea again, then slowly stood. I should let you get back to work. I nodded. We've got a few orders to fill before lunch. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob, then turned back. If you ever want to come back, she said quietly. The door's open, Mom. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but I didn't. I just looked her in the eye and said, thank you. And I meant it, even if I didn't know if I'd ever walk through that door again. After she left, Angela returned from the back, carrying Lena, who had peanut butter on her nose and a jelly packet in one hand. She didn't ask what happened, just looked at me and said, You okay? I nodded. I think so. Then I picked up a tray of shortbread cookies and went back to work, because that's what you do when your world tilts. You bake it steady again. We set the grand opening for the second Saturday in April, not because it had any special meaning, it just felt right. The flowers were blooming. The breeze smelled like sunshine, and we were finally ready, or as ready as 2 women running on caffeine, borrowed courage, and prayer could be. We woke up early that morning and got to the bakery before the sun came up. Angela was already mixing dough with one hand and bouncing Lena on her hip with the other. I brewed the first pot of coffee and opened the windows to let in the morning air. By 7:30, we had the chalkboard sign outside, soft like your grandma's biscuits, bold like her secrets, and baked like our lives depended on it. We hung balloons, turned on the lights, and hoped. By 8 a.m., there was already a small line. First came 2 women from the community center, sisters, they said, who hadn't agreed on a pie flavor in 20 years, but came together just to support us. Then a nurse, who said she saw us on Facebook. Then a young woman holding her toddler's hand, whispering, "This is the place I told you about." And more kept coming. Angela glowed. Her hands moved fast, steady, confident. Lena wore a tiny pink apron that said "Tiny Boss" in sparkly letters, and she walked around handing out imaginary cookies like she was the mayor. We were busy, but not overwhelmed. Every order we filled felt personal, like we weren't just handing over pie, we were handing over a piece of something earned. Then I saw him, Jeffrey, across the street, hoodie on, pacing like he was building up to something. He had his phone in his hand, camera pointed straight at our front door. He didn't come in, he just stood there filming, ranting loud enough for a few folks in line to hear. "Here it is, y'all, the place my grandma built with stolen money. She left us, she replaced us with strangers. Some customers looked over, a few whispered, one or two stepped out of line and left." Angela looked at me, her face tight. "Should we call someone?" I shook my head. "Let's serve the ones who stayed." And that's what we did. I rang up orders while Angela boxed pies. We smiled when it felt hard. We thanked people twice just to make sure they knew they mattered. And slowly, the air settled. A woman near the back of the line turned and said loud enough for him to hear, "Sometimes family isn't blood. Sometimes it's who bakes beside you." Jeffrey looked away. He walked off not long after, still filming, still muttering. We didn't follow, we didn't chase. That evening, when the last customer left and we locked the door, Angela turned to me and said, "You were calm. I would have lost it." I smiled. That part of me's gone now, burned off in the heat like sugar on a crust. Later that night, after the cleaning and counting and quiet, I sat in the office with a cup of tea and opened a blank page in my notebook. I hadn't written to Jeffrey since I left, but tonight I did. "Jeffrey, I didn't leave because you hit me. I left because you believed you could, and because everyone else stayed silent like it was easier than standing up. I'm not hiding. I'm not ashamed. I didn't pick Angela over you. I picked peace over pain. I picked dignity over denial. You weren't replaced. You walked away. There's a difference. I hope one day you understand what it means to build something, not just tear things down. Love always, Jean." I sealed it in an envelope with just his name on the front. No return address. I left it taped to the back of the register with a sticky note that said, "Give to the kid in the hoodie if he ever comes back." Then I walked out into the warm night air. Angela and Lena were already outside, sitting on the bench with a couple of regulars. Lena was coloring with a broken crayon on the back of a pie box. The street light made her curls glow. I sat down beside them and watched the bakery from across the street. The windows still lit up, the scent of cinnamon still clinging to my clothes. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't thought about the hurt. Not the slap, not the silence. For hours. It wasn't gone, but it didn't control me anymore. Those cracks in my heart, they'd been filled with light and flour and laughter. Not perfectly, but enough. Angela leaned over and whispered, "We really did it." I nodded. We baked bold. Have you ever had to walk away from the people you loved, just to finally love yourself? What would your second rise look like? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. If this meant something to you, like it meant something to me, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you've ever baked your way back from heartbreak, I'm listening.